You know, for someone who writes about spiritual connection, intuition, and finding inner peace, I never expected I'd be spending evenings watching political debate shows on YouTube. And I certainly never expected to learn something spiritually significant from two young men calmly dismantling information with the patience of Zen monks, who occasionally snap like the rest of us. But lately, I've been watching Parker and Dean, two remarkable young debaters, and something about their format, their guests, and the psychology unfolding on screen has been tugging at my attention. Not just as entertainment, not just as a cultural curiosity, but as a window into who we are right now, as individuals, as voters, as a society, and honestly, as humans, trying to sort out truth in a world that often feels unrecognizable. So today, I wanted to talk to you about what I've learned from watching them and what their debates might be showing us about ourselves. First, we want calm, but we seek tension. I recently wrote about this paradox. We say we want peace, but we click on tension. We long for calm, but we scroll toward conflict. We crave grounding, but we consume spectacle. It turns out this applies perfectly to Parker and Dean's phenomenon. Their show offers calm voices, clear reasoning, respectful questions, but wrapped in tension, contrast, human imperfection, and emotional friction. And whether we realize it or not, that's exactly why it works. Tension creates engagement. Calm creates transformation. Their show gives us both. The second thing is why their guests behave the way that they do. There is something deeply fascinating, almost tender, in the way many of their guests respond. They praise the hosts. They say things like, "You're so calm, you're so smart, you've prepared so well, you're impressive for your age." And then sometimes, in the same breath, "I still support Trump." Even when the facts contradict their own stated values. It looks illogical, but it's not. It's human psychology. Because when truth bumps into identity, identity usually wins. Political allegiance today is rarely about beliefs. It's about belonging. For many guests, supporting Trump isn't a position, it's a place, a tribe, a shield, a story of who they are and who their people are. And when evidence threatens that identity, the mind does something predictable. It protects the identity, even at the cost of truth. That's not stupidity, that's survival. Third, praise as a defense mechanism. Now here's something subtle I started noticing. When guests compliment Parker and Dean, it's often a way to preserve their self-image. Because if a guest loses an argument and the hosts are extraordinarily smart, calm, and prepared, then losing becomes less painful. It softens the ego blow. Maybe I wasn't wrong, Maybe they're just unusually impressive. And when they minimize the host's age, you're young, you'll understand when you're older. That's another psychological move. Reestablishing hierarchy so the loss feels less personal. Again, not malicious, just human. 4. Their imperfections are the most important part. Here's the part that surprised even me. Their imperfections create another layer of tension, and that tension makes their calm more meaningful. If they were flawless, angelic, eternally composed debaters, we wouldn't trust them. We'd feel like we were watching a performance. But because they occasionally sigh, get frustrated, I've seen Parker hold his head, raise their voices slightly, we see something profoundly relatable. They care. They aren't aloof intellectuals floating above the conversation. They're human beings trying to hold the line of truth in a world where that line gets tugged at constantly. And honestly, their frustration is a sign of moral backbone. A sign that truth still matters to them. Their humanness is part of what makes the show compelling and healing. So I'm wondering if we are in a possible cultural turning point. I never thought I'd say this, but I believe these shows might be participating in something culturally important. Not a flashy, dramatic, overnight kind of way, but in a quiet, steady, soul-leveled way. Because for years, our public discourse has been dominated by bullying, cruelty, dominance, humiliation, outrage as entertainment, truth as optional. Aggression was framed as strength. Kindness was framed as weakness. But Parker and Dean model the opposite. Clarity without cruelty. Directness without dehumanization. Boundaries without belittling. Firmness without rage. Humility without fragility. It feels like watching a new archetype of strength emerge. Strength with kindness, wisdom with passion, truth with humanity. And maybe, just maybe, a culture exhausted by cruelty is beginning to turn. Not toward softness alone, not toward niceness, but toward stand your ground kindness, a type of leadership we desperately need right now. So what their show teaches us about ourselves. In every conversation they host, we see truth wrestling with identity, fear wrestling with curiosity, ego wrestling with evidence, humanity wrestling with itself. And the most important part, we see that disagreement does not require dehumanization. We can sit in tension without becoming hostile. We can explore truth without destroying each other. And we can hold firm without losing compassion. Their show is not perfect, but it is profoundly human. And in a time where dehumanization has become a political strategy, this feels revolutionary. As an invitation, maybe this is why their format resonates. It reminds us who we could be: calm, imperfect, passionate, kind, able to listen, able to question, able to disagree without losing our humanity. So I'll leave you with this reflection. Where does truth meet your identity? Where does calm meet your tension? And what would it look like to disagree, fiercely if needed, without dehumanizing the person across from you? Because if two young men with webcams can teach us that, imagine what the rest of us could do. And actually, that question is exactly why I wrote my book, What Happened to Us? A Healing Path Through America's Divide. Everything we just talked about, the psychology, the identity traps, the fear, the way truth and belonging collide, it's all in there. But the book goes deeper. It traces how we got here, the systems that were built to capture our fear and keep us divided, the conditions that made so many of us vulnerable. And it offers a path forward, not a quick fix, but a real one. For anyone waking up, for anyone waiting for someone they love to wake up, for anyone trying to understand how we lost each other and how we might find our way home together. Right now, through January 15th, the book is on sale as an ebook, and I'm working on getting the paper book out. The link is in the description. If anything in today's video stirred something in you, the book will take you further. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm Linda at Tula Light, where story meets spirit.